probably not gonna get everything done with it, so he just came along to have his perspective because he sees it more often. But yeah, he didn't even do his inspection until he got it out. So the same thing might happen. If you were there, it's just
Might derail the.
right. It would have been, I mean, even if it was just for that reason, you know, just to have you participate, but not necessarily accomplish what you would normally do there.
So where's my DEP girl when I call and she doesn't answer no more? The only thing I get's the answer machine.
During the day,
Yeah, what's her name?
it's Concetta.
Yeah, Concetta.
She's around. I think she's just so busy that she's on the phone constantly.
Really?
And it goes to voicemail.
I believe that.
And then, yeah,
I believe that.
Victoria was to review this. Rainwater. I think we go a little backwards. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, yeah, he goes through his,
But
yes.
he just has to have you.
Mark? Yeah.
Behind me? I
No,
thought
I'm
you
going
were-
over here.
I thought you were behind me coming over here in your car.
What?
I thought you were behind me in your car coming over here.
Oh, I might have been. I don't know. It's gonna be colder. Come on here.
I'm John. Just work.
Lucky you.
So many other things.
It's just amazing.
Right. And you doing okay?
The same drill, different.
Hello, Marcel, how are you?
That would be his first.
Hey, Mark.
No,
You're welcome. That's what we're here to do. We already got that.
Oh, did you?
Oh, I got it this morning.
Yeah, I wanted to do that.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Same old thing, just say that, say that, say that.
The only one in high school, because of that way you Yeah, so it's not a requirement.
Yeah, at the expense of you.
So it's just. They get knocked over. It's kind of funny. Yeah, exactly. All the catchers do. You'll regret that one day, but,
Hi there, hi.
he's just. Yeah. And- Right, and.
So the guy that lives across the street, Bob,
Oh, yeah?
apparently they're doing, and God is doing Sunfill on 601.
Yeah, it's awful.
And it's they were doing it at midnight, damn body, laying down. I called the cops on him. I said, you know, he's like, oh, I mean, he was, police officer was nice, and they said, but it's midnight during the week. I said, something else, come on. Anyway, he went up and shut it down. But they were there.
I don't know, it might have been that.
Well,
I was on
so-
vacation.
Good.
He said,
No, I'll be okay.
I need him to up.
Okay, where are you over today?
Go back to the 50s, right?
Yeah. March back.
Make up your mind.
Yeah.
Is this a Hershey? Is it Hershey?
Website.
Yeah, no, right.
You see it, but there's one city and this on the Tosh website, it's just one.
Yeah, well, that's a big.
That's okay, your spot's there, you're gonna go out.
Yeah.
Marianne, you said the HEA March 5th, right?
March 5th, yes.
As soon as I learned how to do it, then there's an update to it. I'll set everything up on them.
Let's
let me hear what. Yeah.
Do they have red underneath them? They have red on them? Yes, those were the questions. Why, because my question, red is red.
I have my own. I was worried about the meters for the.
Yes.
I do trouble. Oh, they did?
Well, it doesn't even go.
Yeah, I'm like, where's the money? Where's the money?
Yeah. It's a labor month. Yeah. My wife, just down the road, what is it, Krakow.
Yeah.
They're there.
And so that's what part of it's fine.
I asked him.
Hey, Dave,
He is. I don't know. He's definitely here.
I brought the, this is my one. He left and grew up there, the cardboard section.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
They're in my truck.
She's getting it for us. She has it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Hi. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That one's there if anybody wants to use it. Remember to put your, little green lights on when you're talking. This one's on for anybody. If you've never spoken here before, just put your name for me for the minutes.
Okay, yeah, so.
But I almost know everybody here, I think. I know you missed it. You don't have to, I know who you are. The only people who don't come here up, you know, never been here before.
Well, I've never been to this meeting.
You come to me. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
How's your day?
No, Matt. I still know what you.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna give him a minute anyway, so we'll give him a couple of minutes, he's running it in here.
I don't know.
I just need a minute or two.
What's that?
Yeah. No, not ready yet, give me a second. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call the April 16th, 2026 quarterly landfill committee meeting to order. It is 2:03, and Stacy is offered to take a roll call.
Yeah, I'll just state everybody who's here for the record. We have Victoria Octave Cordero, Jacob Schrey of Hanover Engineering, Astor Lawson from the Bethlehem Landfill, Benjamin Matthews from the Bethlehem Landfill, Brian Marrow, our resident on the board, and we have Priscilla De Leon as well. And we also have myself, Stacy Werkheiser, the secretary, Jay Finnegan, our manager, and we have two representatives from DEP here today, Roger Bellis and Amy Fauch.
Thank you, Stacy. I think at this point, I'm new here, obviously, so I'm the new guy in town, but pretty much turn it over to Astor for the agenda.
Yeah, so for waste activities, multi-tonnages, for January, MSW with 16,055 tons. For February, MSW with 13,786 tons. And for March, monthly tonnages, MSW with 17,448 tons. For C&E, 2,335 in January, 1,354 for February, and 2,060 for March. For residual tons in January, we had 623. In January, 581 in February, and 656 in March. We didn't take in any asbestos and no EDC or alternative daily cover. For sewage sludge in January, we took in 38 tons, which was less than 1% of our total waste stream. waste stream. For out-of-state waste, we took 5,920 tons in January, which is 35% of our total incoming waste stream. In February, we took 4,367 tons, which is 32% of our incoming waste stream in February. And in March, we took in 5,920 tons, which was 34% of our incoming waste stream. For recycling, in January, we took 4 recycling customers. In February, we took 4, and in March, we took 6. Form use submittals. So we had a form use submittal from Suffolk County Water Authority, which is plant trash, approval on January 23rd, 2026. Heidelberg Materials, US Cement LLC, which is plant trash, which was March 17th, 2026. Another Heidelberg Materials, US Cement LLC, which is asphalt shingles, was March 17th, 2026. And then another plant trash from Heidelberg Materials, US Cement LLC, March 17th, 2026 was the approval date. For annual groundwater trend analysis, first quarter sampling event was March 2nd through March 5th. For correspondence and reports sent to the township, we have the Q4 groundwater report was sent February 5th, 2026, and the Q4 facility report on January 27th, 2026. For landfill operations, DP inspections, on January 20th, Mike Migowski was on site for an engineering inspection. And then January 29th, 2026, we had Robert Mullins from enforcement. February 17th, 2026, we had Mike Migowski again. February 26th, 2026 was Robert Mullins from enforcement. March 17th, 2026, Mike Migowski engineering. And then March 20th, 2026, Robert Mullins enforcement. For the post-municipal inspections, January 8th, January 15th, Scott Brown was on site. And February 5th, February 19th, we had Jacob Schrey on site for his inspection. And then March 5th and March 19th, we had Jacob Schrey on site for his inspections. Commercial waste vehicles, in January, we had total trucks of 2,080. February, 1,780. March, 2,194. For overweights, in January, we had 22 with 22 warnings, 0 suspensions. In February, we had 24 overweights, 22 warnings, 2 suspensions. And then in March, we had 24 overweights, 21 warnings, and 3 suspensions. During Q1, North Slope Road is not needed repairs, as well as not needed repairs. Flare operations and gas collection. Our case plant is the main gas collection system. Arcadia handles all routine and non-routine maintenance to maximize landfill gas production and minimize odors. January totals for the January average plant flow is 3,081 SCFM. January average flare flow is 0 for the plant ran. Full-time total average GCCS flow is 3,081 SCFM. Total plant hours was 744 hours. Total flare downtime hours was 744. And total GCCS downtime was 0. February totals, the February average plant flow was 3,103 SCFM. February average flare flow was 2,987 SCFM. The total average flow from the GCCS flow was 3,113 SCFM. Total plant hours was 67 hours. Total flare downtime hours was 665. And total GCCS downtime was 0.9. So March average plant flow was 2,797 SCFM. March average flare flow was 0. Total average from the gas collection system was 2,797 SCFM. Total plant hours in March was 743. Total flare downtime hours was 744, and total GCCS downtime was 0.9. Radiation monitoring, with there were 3 radioactive loads, load alarms from January to March 2026. On January 5th, 2026, the load was identified as iodine 131, and the load was disposed of on site. On January 13th, 2026, the load was identified as tantalum 99, and the load was disposed of on site. And on March 30th, 2026, the load was identified as thorium 232, and the load was disposed of on site. Current waste operations are in R2A. Odor complaints, Amy sent over the odor complaints yesterday to the township. abatement system continues to operate and discharge in the city of Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant. Leachate collection, and leachate management system continues to operate as normal, so the all leachate water and carbon groups, PFAS facility in the city of Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant. For January, we had a total of, we had 522,460 gallons of leachate was sent from the PFAS treatment plant discharge. In February, leachate discharge from the PFAS plant was 829,110 gallons. And in March, the total gallons from the PFAS treatment plant discharge was 595,240 gallons.
I guess it comes back over. Run through the agenda here. Thank you, Astor. So item 5, I'll run through the highlights of the bi-weekly or bi-monthly inspections, HMI inspections. It's my understanding that this has historically been read verbatim as it's presented in the agenda packet. I guess I'd like to see whether the committee still feels that that's necessary. It's about 5 pages or so of text. I'll read it if everyone feels that it's appropriate, but if not, I just assume we'll go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page if it's there, we can read it.
This is just why I think that each of you highlight the main components of it. We do have the DP here today, so I'd like to have them, be able to answer questions and do some information sharing.
Sure.
Especially if they're repeated.
This is sent to you, right? You get
Yeah,
it?
anything that really.
Yeah, they're sent to you,
Okay, so yeah, I'll run through. I won't read word for word, but I'll run through each paragraph and we'll move along through. So on January 8th, there's a slight wastewater treatment plant odor. There were no landfill odors detected prior to the inspection, no vultures over the working face, and there was a slight gas odor coming down through the southeast corner, the southeast cells.
Excuse me, Jacob, for the people who haven't been to this before, they don't know that the wastewater treatment plant, that's not a landfill-related facility, that's the Bethlehem.
Yeah, that is a wastewater treatment plant. It is not connected in any way to the landfill. The reason that that's provided is to distinguish sewage-related odors from landfill-related odors. So on January 15th, a strong wastewater treatment plant odor was detected on Shimersville Road. There were no landfill gas odors detected prior to the landfill inspection, and no gas odors detected around the southeast cells. Also no vultures over the working face. February 5th, 2026, no wastewater treatment plant odors were detected. A slight landfill gas odor along Apple Butter Road to the from the landfill entrance to the Red Barn Auto Garage, and a moderate persistent landfill gas odor detected near the southeast corner, the southeast cells. No vultures over the working face, and a slight garbage odor detected near the working face. February 19th, 2026, a slight wastewater treatment plant odor was detected near the wastewater treatment plant. A slight intermittent landfill gas odor was detected near the landfill entrance, between the landfill entrance and the self-storage facility along Apple Butter Road. No landfill odors through Steel City or along Riverside Drive after the landfill inspection. No vultures were observed, and there was a slight moderate garbage odor detected near the working face. Gas odors near the southeastern corner were minimal and appeared to be improving. March 5th, no wastewater treatment plant odors detected along Apple Butter Road. A slight gas odor along Apple Butter Road from the landfill entrance to Calpine Gate B. No landfill gas odors after the inspection. No vultures observed over the working face. The landfill does have a falconer who's present for the majority of the year. There was a slight to moderate landfill gas odor detected near the southeast corner of the southeast cells, and a slight garbage odor over the working face. March 19th, 2026, no wastewater treatment plant odors or landfill gas odors prior to the inspection, nor off-site after the inspection. During the landfill inspection, there were no vultures observed and falconer was present. After the inspection, there were approximately 12 to 18 vultures observed from Skyline Drive. We provide a list in our inspection reports of action items and an updated status of those action items. So the January 8th, 2026 inspection report, there were additional gas wells that were to be installed. At that time, that was almost completed. The installation of candlestick flare remains to be completed. Extension of the odor mister system has been completed. It was completed as of January 8th already. Clean out the mud grate located southwest of the leachate tank was still to be completed at that time. And removal of litter in the eastern permit boundary and surface litter in the northeast corner of the permit boundary was to be completed. And there were erosion rills on the western side slope of NR1A, which was to be completed, to be repaired. January 15th, 2026, the gas collection piping had been almost completed at that time. The candlestick flare still to be installed. Clean out the mud grate by the leachate tank, still to be completed. Litter removal and picking in the northeast corner was to be completed. And the repair of the erosion rills in western slope of NR1A was to be completed. As of February 5th, 2026, the installation of gas collection piping was almost complete. The installation of temporary cap on the northern and easternmost portions of cells SE2A and B was to be completed by March 31st, 2026. Candlestick flare still to be completed. Cleaning out the mud grate southwest of the leachate tank was to be completed. Removal of litter and picking throughout the northeast corner was to be completed. And repair of the erosion rills was to be completed. These tasks on delay largely as a result of winter weather conditions. February 19th, 2026, the gas collection piping had been completely installed as of that inspection. Installation of temporary cap in northern and easternmost portions of cells SE2A and B still to be completed by March 31st. Installation of the candlestick flare was to be completed. Cleaning out the mud grate was to be completed. Removal and picking of litter was to be completed yet. And the repair of the erosion was still to be completed. As of March 5th, we'll start to pick this up a little bit here. The gas collection piping, we keep some of these things in here for consistency. The gas collection piping installation was complete. Temporary cap, we haven't gotten March 31st yet, so it was not yet done. Candlestick flare, still on the list. Cleaning out the mud grate still remained on the list. Litter to be picked yet, still on the list, and the erosion rills still to be done. And then March 19th, 2026, the mud grate had been cleaned out at that point. Litter remained to be picked. The landfill staff had continued to battle winds and pick litter through the winter, but it's been a challenge. And the repair of the erosion wells still to be completed. The next section is the surface emission monitoring reports. January 14th, 2026, there was a report from SCS Field Services that indicated there were 0 exceedances along the monitoring route and exceedances of 500 ppm above background at 4 cap penetration locations. The landfill added additional cover to these areas, and a 10-day recheck was conducted on December 18th, and all points were measured below 500 ppm above background. The 1-month recheck showed that these areas remained under 500 ppm. On March 16th, there was another surface emission monitoring conducted by SCS, and there was 1 exceedance on the monitoring route and 3 exceedances at cap penetration locations. Again, additional cover was added to these areas. The 10-day recheck on February 13th showed that 2 cap penetrations still measured greater than 500 ppm. However, the second 10-day recheck at the 2 cap penetrations that were above, first 10-day recheck had both dropped below 500 ppm, and the 1-month recheck on March 6th showed that all 4 areas were under 500 ppm.
You know, like there was a February one, where there was a CDD estimate report from February, you know why?
I do not know that.
Keep on.
So we provide some highlights of the DEP inspection reports in our HMI inspection reports, typically noting areas where the department has indicated something that might be concerned.
So, I think the received this report on March 16th was covering all February dates, so I think that was actually part of February.
You think, yeah, okay.
Because it's due back to February
I-
6th and the 10-day recheck was February, and then the cap penetration from February 23rd. All that stuff happened in February.
Okay, so maybe we just don't have March's date
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
We have
There's no
February's,
idea.
but not March's.
Right, March is in
Okay.
the
So number 2, it's just referencing February. Thank you.
So the DEP inspection items that were noted in December 18th, 2025 DEP report, there were no landfill odors detected. Prior to the inspection, there was a light persistent gas odor detected at the working face, a slight to moderate old garbage odor detected in the area where the landfill had been drilling new gas collection wells. And they were unable to identify surface gas odors in this area due to odors from drilling operations. Low levels of windblown litter were observed, and pickers were present working to remove windblown litter. 4 vultures were observed over the working face. The fountain was observed. The landfill is still planning to install a temporary cap. The clean out of sedimentation pond 4 had been complete. And there were 2 items raised as an ongoing violation. February 8th, 2024, notice of violation related to fugitive air emissions. And through February 8th, 2024, and February 10th, 2024, notice of violation related to daily and intermediate cover. January 29th, DEP inspection issues include slight and persistent landfill gas odor along Applewater Road, in the vicinity of Red Barn Auto, and a slight intermittent garbage odor near the working face. The litter crew was not on site at the time. Minimal amounts of windblown litter were observed, and the facility was responding to an incidence of windblown litter with on-site personnel. There were no vultures observed. The landfill had been drilling the 10 new gas collection wells in the southeast corner. North-facing wells have not been tied into the gas collection system yet as of this time. The landfill is still planning to install temp cap around the southeast corner slopes. And at the exit interview, it was stressed to the landfill that items 1 and 2 above should be proactively addressed. That relates to the odors and litter. Ongoing violations in the January 14th, 2026 consent order.
I think there might be a word missing there. At that point, they were resolved by the consent order.
Yeah, they have been included in the consent order and therefore removed as NOVs. Thank you. And February 26, 2026, DEP inspection issues, there were garbage odors detected on Apple Butter Road near Red Barn Auto, and the odors ranged from slight to moderate garbage odors, which were persistent. There was some mud observed being tracked from the landfill entrance onto Apple Butter Road, which was not observed airborne. The landfill is currently replacing bristles on the sweeper and will sweep the entrance and Apple Butter Road upon completion. Total dimensions of the working face appear to be outside the 100-foot by 100-foot standard. A slight intermittent garbage odor was noted in the vicinity of the working face. There were minimal amounts of litter observed on the south side, and the landfill had been working to respond to a complaint of visible litter on the north side. Litter crews were to return on February 27th to work on the north side. Specific questions related to gas flow from the landfill to RK were not able to be answered. A slight garbage odor was present in the area of 10 new gas collection wells in the southeast corner, and the following exit interview concerns were noted. The recent uptick in complaints received by the department regarding odors, complaints regarding litter and cover on the north slope, mud tracked onto Apple Butter Road, Department Odor Patrol observations, mentions of the working face as it pertains to the 100 by 100 standard, litter/flagging control and pre-planning for high wind events. The landfill is requested to begin submitting daily photos of the final working face cover to the department upon receipt of this inspection report. And within 15 days following receipt of the inspection report, the landfill is requested to provide responses to the following. 1, response regarding working face size. 2, status of recently installed gas wells. And 3, how the landfill plans to facilitate communication with Archaea to provide information regarding the activity of the gas wells at the time of the department inspections. So that concludes item 5 and 6 on the agenda, which I believe brings us to the department's involvement. If you folks would like to join us here at the table.
We have a chance to ask questions then later.
Yeah, I think, I'm just saying, I think let's have the DP come up and then, because some of the questions I can probably provide input for. I just first want to say thank you to Mr. Bellis, and the staff at DEP for coming today. I know that we've worked a long time with the township, and on the landfill and concerns of the landfill, and I think maybe this is probably the first time we've been able to have you come to one of our landfill committee meetings. So I do want to say thank you for making the time to come and providing information to the residents. One of the reasons why I specifically asked for you to come was to just be able to kind of provide to the public a general understanding of what your role is in overseeing the landfill operations. What are the parameters by which you review landfill operations, and how do you address the things that you find when you do your monthly inspections? And I guess that's kind of where I thought it would be started, and perhaps we can then from there go into the consent decree and be able to provide some more information on that. But I think first and foremost, it would be really helpful for the public. We have some people I have not seen come to our meetings, so I would be really helpful for them to kind of explain just what do you do, how do you do it, and what are your parameters?
Sure. So,
I'd also like to welcome you too, because I know you've been here several times in the past, and it's always helpful to show the residents that the side of the DEP that cares. So, thanks.
thank you. So I mean, just to start off, the fact that the department's here today.
Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Roger Bells, I'm the waste program manager, and with me is Amy Paul, she's the district supervisor. Robert Mullen is the inspector, he reports directly to Amy. Obviously Amy has a lot more firsthand experience through Robert, and Amy was doing those inspections for a while because we were short-staffed, so it's critical for Amy to be here with me today. She knows a lot more about the day-to-day operations at the site. But I think the one thing I'd like to just start off saying is that not all host municipalities have this type of involvement, with the operation of the landfills within their community. And I think it's a credit to the municipality and the community that you hold these regular, meetings to keep everybody educated and informed about what's happening at the landfill. And it shows that there's, continued open lines of communication between the community, the municipality, and the landfill. And that does not happen, with other host municipalities. It is good, to see this type of interaction, because a lot of things can be ironed out just by communication at the local level, where it wouldn't necessarily be DEP's role to step in and resolve things that can be resolved relatively quickly with just this type of communication. So it's very refreshing to see this type of interaction and regular meetings regarding the operation of the landfill. You know, regarding DEP's role, obviously we are the regulating party for the landfill operations, the waste program within DEP. Anything that happens at the landfill has to be permitted by the department. So there are very detailed conditions under which the landfill has to operate. They're included in conditions of their permit, they're included in the regulations, and our staff, by regulation, is required to conduct 12 inspections a year. We do that by conducting monthly inspections. Our operations staff, Robert, is out there monthly to conduct his regular compliance and enforcement inspections. With the engineer that's assigned to the site, Matthew Blagowski, he's out there monthly. As you can imagine, we can't show up at a landfill once a year and expect to see what you saw a year ago. Landfills are constantly changing in how they operate because they're like a construction site. So the fact that our engineers go out there monthly, it keeps them in tune with all the construction that's going on. And then our engineers also will evaluate construction certifications when new cells are being constructed. The landfill has to confirm with our engineering staff by their review of documentation that the cells are constructed correctly. As you can imagine, you know, we want to make sure that the liners are constructed correctly, that the liners are protected appropriately, that the leachate collection systems are installed appropriately, gas collection, capping. So it's critical for engineers to play a key role out there as well. But so from a compliance and enforcement perspective, you know, our inspectors are out there monthly to confirm that the landfills are operating within their nuisance minimization control plan, keeping dust down, keeping litter down, keeping odors down. They're making sure that the landfill is complying with their limitations on how much waste they can take in a day. Average daily volume, maximum daily volume. They're there to monitor the gas collection system to see that it's operating appropriately. The set basins, they look at those to make sure that they're being maintained appropriately. So, I mean, realistically, that's the role the department plays. You know, our staff is out there on a regular basis, confirming that the landfill is complying with the conditions of the parking. Now, at times, you'll see in our inspection reports, there will be identification of concerns. Like, for instance, our staff might detect an odor somewhere, or they might see some litter that got off site. A lot of times, they'll be identified as items that need to be addressed and don't rise to the level of a violation. Usually what ends up happening is our staff will document the facts in their monthly inspections. And if we see a pattern of concerns of happening on a regular basis, then we get together, myself, Amy, the inspector, our operations chief, Rachel Miller, who's in charge of our enforcement side, and we'll evaluate what, if any, additional steps might need to be taken other than acknowledging some of these things happening at the landfill. So that's the department's role, you know, in the operation of the landfill. The one thing that maybe I'll touch on before we open it up to questions is that while I was talking through the idea of acknowledging or recognizing concerns in the inspections, what rises to the level of enforcement, the department, and Bethlehem Landfill did, reach, a pretty extensive agreement back in January to resolve, the items that had risen to the level of needing notices of violation, needing corrective actions. And that was executed in January, and we've already seen some of the corrective actions that have put in place, and our staff, and I think probably I must speak for Jake, but I think we've seen a significant improvement in some of the odor concerns that we had regarding the southeast corner. Probably the biggest corrective action that was incorporated into the agreement was to get that capping project done by March 31st. And Bethlehem met that goal, and we were on site today, and Amy even noticed significant improvement in the odors at the landfill because of this agreed upon, we call it consent order agreement, and it involved a pretty steep penalty as well. So I think that's maybe all the facts that can arm me with to develop questions.
Maybe, I think Brian has some questions, so we will start.
This wasn't so much for the DEP, but for Astor.
Okay.
Do we want to continue with the DEP questions? Since we have them
Yeah,
on mic.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest with you, some of the DEP questions that might come up, I might be looking at Astor or Ben, to start off with some of the factual stuff, and then, Amy or I can opine on how the department either agrees or disagrees, or we're in agreement with how things are happening, because obviously, we're out there monthly, but we obviously don't know the day-to-day operations like Astor does, so.
Can I say something before we get started? I'd like to say I'm very proud that we are one of the.
Microphone, Priscilla. Speak, we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I'm very proud that we're one of the municipalities, host municipalities that do this. And I want to thank the staff and thank you guys and Everett for making this possible. But I also want to thank the residents, because you see how important your eyes and your nose and your, whatever you see out there is important for them to know, because they're only there once a month. So if you see something happening, you gotta let us know. And you see, and if they don't do it, you see the thickness of this report, so, I thank you for that.
I did have just a couple questions for the DEP. I know we always have this discussion of like a pattern of how long something persists before there are additional layers of requests for things to be done. So for everyone's benefit, is there a rule that you follow? Like, if something is continuously reported for 3 months, or is it 6 months? Is there a rule that you try to follow with respect to how long an issue can remain persistent before you start to review
Yeah,
that?
the quick answer is no. We don't have a general rule. I think there's the factors that we consider are what is the issue, and what is its impact on the community, and what is its overall impact on the environment. And obviously, the department has a lot more leniency on to what extent we would pursue enforcement for minor issues. The other thing that we also have to consider are what attempts are being made. While we may be identifying things on a regular basis, our inspectors are in tune with what the landfill's attempting to do to resolve it. And that plays a role in how much time we give. If we're dealing with a landfill that's just neglecting everything we're saying, we're gonna have a much shorter duration of time that we're gonna put up with that. If we're dealing with a landfill that is making efforts but not getting over the hump, we'll allow additional time. But again, the other thing we need to consider is how much of an impact is it having? on the community, on the environment. So there's just a lot of factors. There's no easy answer to at what point do we transition away from making up comments in an inspection report, and then taking it to the next level of notices of violation, enforcement, penalties, agreements, those kind of things. It's just not an easy answer.
Okay, thank you. With respect to, like, can you describe what we consider a minor issue versus something that's more serious? And then maybe also describe, like, what do you consider to be something that's more impactful, like you said, you weigh environmental impact and impact on the community. What items are you, in your mind, are saying, oh gee, this is more of an impact and this is a minor issue?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would get to some of the more visual things. You know, the impact may not be as, it may not be causing an issue off-site. And just the perfect example, I think, is probably some of the recent issues that the landfill had in spring, February, March timeframe, with some of the flagging that was occurring with the cover issues. You know, while our staff and even, you know, information we were receiving from the public was indicating that the landfill wasn't looking very good in terms of their ability to maintain compliant levels of cover material to keep from flagging and having those observations. So, you know, while our staff's out there monitoring those things, bringing it to their attention, the landfill is also showing effort, but with the inability because of the weather to really do what absolutely needed to be done, which was to get heavy equipment on those areas. So again, you know, there was some leniency there because it's more of a visual issue. It's non-compliant, there's no question about it. The intermediate cap or cover was not complying with the standard. But when our staff was going out there, they were identifying the efforts the landfill was making to address it. And it was not presenting any significant impact on the environment and the community other than this visual impact. That would be an example, you know, kind of something that would be considered less impactful. Now, with probably something that is absolutely more impactful are odors, specifically landfill gas odors. And we did have a history of having some landfill gas odors on site. And I think part of the reason why this consent warrant agreement turned out to be kind of as big as it was is over the course of the 2 or 3 year time frame that document covers, we identified some odor issues early on. The landfill seemed to be addressing it, and then a different area would open up. So the department usually likes to tie everything into one document. Where if we see there's still something open, we want to get it resolved before we develop a document like that. And I think what ended up happening with this one is there was some duration of time where we thought something was fixed, and while we were waiting to assure it was fixed, something else happened. And we were like, well, we can't resolve this issue until we get this one done. And then that one issue would seem to get resolved, and then, so we created kind of a monster with that one, and then we couldn't close out some things because we were waiting for other things to resolve. I think the one thing that we probably look at in the future is to try to, if we have to do any type of enforcement beyond a notice of violation, we're probably gonna try to get to it a little quicker, to get it so that we don't have to have this huge encompassing document that covers a 2 to 3 year span of issues. But that was why it ended up occurring that way, is because a lot of the issues, while we're similar, involved different reasons why there were problems.
Okay. I think I've expressed this, and I think the community has expressed this just in general, that the length of time that a notice of violation is outstanding is a concern for the community. We were very happy to see that it got resolved by way of the consent decree. I always point out that that consent decree is my understanding between you and the landfill, so the township didn't really have an ability to provide party input to that document and negotiate anything or provide, our position on that as a party to that, particular thing. So I think that that's just notable in those circumstances when there is something, it's always, between the landfill and DEP without, the township really having a lot of ability to intervene, and so to speak, we don't have an intervention capacity when those things occur. And I do appreciate the explanation about the, you know, the reason. I think the other question, that we see a lot of times is on a report, it says for something that perhaps is an issue, whether big or small, it always says like not determined. So there's like no violation. I never see violation, even if ultimately you issue a notice of violation, that like that term violation never shows up on the checklist. But it always says like not determined. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think probably because the inspection reports, at times need additional consideration from staff like Amy, myself, and Rachel. Again, the main reason for the monthly inspections and the inspector's, goal or, main reason for being there is to document facts. There are things that are pretty cut and dry where our inspectors have a level of confidence in that they can put a citation on there and mark it as a violation. But a lot of times there's areas where they'll document the facts and not know immediately if staff like myself, Amy, or Rachel would consider that to be a violation. And it's marked non-determined, allowing the department additional time to make that consideration. We're gonna consider that a violation or not. I would say, I think we do have some inspections that actually mark violations.
If you go back to like the notices of violation, they'll spell out in there, what source the inspection reports those came from, and those will list violation. But if it's, say, we issue a violation on February 4th, it shows up in a notice of violation, on the March inspection, they're not gonna continue, if it's the same issue that's ongoing, they're not gonna continue to mark it a violation, because then it appears in our system that it's like two separate ones, but it's really the same one that's continuing, but we're still tracking it because that notice of violation is still open.
Okay, thank you. I had, in January, we had anticipated having the DEP come, so I had come up with a list of questions. I don't wanna take up all of the residents' time going through my questions, but I do wanna say thank you for providing the written response. I think for the public's benefit, Stacy, we could, publish the questions and the written responses from the DEP, just so that the residents can see what the questions were related to. The one that's kind of outstanding, the hot button topic, I think, of the day is the size of the working face. And in, you know, at least my understanding was with the consent decree, there were some more, I don't think I'm not sure if the consent decree really covers a working face as an issue, but, and you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
no, just to indicate.
we did not address that. Yeah.
So that, the size of the working face is not something that you could use the consent decree to address necessarily, my understanding, but what is the required size of the working face, and what,
Right, so our regulations don't stipulate anything specifically, other than the landfill needs to comply with this nuisance minimization control plan. When, I think it was at the time it was IESI, I think, went through the southern expansion. Is that I forget what the terminology, southeast realignment. We had requested them to do some updates to their nuisance minimization control plan, beef it up a little bit to assure that they were mitigating, and in this case, odors to the fullest extent possible. One of their mitigation measures for garbage odors was to keep the working face at a 100 by 100 foot limit. So that is in their nuisance minimization control plan as a garbage odor minimization tool. And it's not a regulatory requirement, but our permit requires that the landfill comply with its approved nuisance minimization control plan, which it is. When this came to light, I think it was mostly because of observations from the north side where there's this appearance where the tipper was located versus where the heavy machinery was operating versus where the waste was actually being placed and compacted. It appeared to be an enormous area. Upon investigation, the working face itself, while we did identify that it was larger than 100 by 100, wasn't overly large. So we are working with the landfill to better define, you know, how they're gonna manage that and how we're gonna go out and attempt to verify that. You know, we're not gonna go out there with a tape measure. You know, you just can't do that. It's not safe. So we're coming up with ways. They've developed some drawings to help the department and themselves track that working face size. But one thing that we need to remember is that where the tipper is located, and for those that, I'm sure everybody has seen them, basically it's a device that they could back the garbage trailer onto, unhook the tractor, and it will dump out an entire tractor trailer load onto the ground and then can be processed. So where that tipping occurs is away from the working face. So their heavy equipment then pushes that material over to the working face. So the other thing that we've been working with the landfill on is to try to figure out how to minimize and regularly keep that distance at a minimum, to try to alleviate from litter coming off when they're pushing it. But literally that 100 by 100 only is applicable to where they're actively compacting.
Does not include the tipper.
Does not include the area where the material touches the ground and gets pushed over to the working face. And I think that's where people were seeing, because at times you may have 300 feet between the tipper and the working face. And when you're seeing that from a distance, you see the heavy equipment working, you might believe that that entire area is what the department would consider the working face. And it's not. It's where the compaction, where the placement and compaction is actually occurring.
I would just say, I think when you're looking at the various types of things that would be more harmful to the community, I think for sure odors and environmental impact on sites and like, you know, surface water runoff, whatever those things, monitoring wells, very important. But I also think what would be of equal significance would be the visual impact. And I'm just, you know, obviously the DEP makes its own rules about that, but that is probably the first thing, like, you know, you make a first impression on somebody, you know, the first time you see them, you make certain impressions based upon what you see. And so what people first see when they see the landfill is also a reflection of what lower socket is and what is lower socket. And so, and just the topographical location of this landfill, it's highly visible from various parts of the valley that are not even near us. I mean, you can see it all the way from the Poconos. With that in mind, I would hope that from the township's perspective, this is just me speaking as a township representative, that visual impact is something that's considered to be a significant thing. More so, you know, I would say in line with odor complaints, because somebody's visual perception of what they see is just, you know, just as bad as odor from my perspective. And I understand that you have to weigh different things, but given the location of that, of the current operating phase, and then what's able to be seen from that spot, you know, it is a very concerning issue that a lot of people see. So maybe it's unique to our landfill as opposed to other
It's
ones.
not, no, it's not.
Visual impact, and especially, I think one of the things that we saw with that, with the daily cover, that you said that there was, you know, concerns with being able to get the daily cover on there, and I think there was like tarp being used at a certain point, and all that, is like the litter in blue, and then it's all over the trees, and I know, you know, I noticed, you know, it's an ongoing thing about trying to pick the garbage out of the trees, so, you know, while there's continuing effort to try and try and get the garbage out of the trees, it just still stays there as a permanent visual impact, and just overall untidy look.
Right, and you know, the department does, you know, would take enforcement actions. And again, this is not atypical, this is something that all landfills fight with, and you know, on windy days. And there are things in the nuisance minimization control plan that help minimize that. Under certain conditions, the landfill will stop using the tipper, or they'll even shut down the working phase for the day, which has happened in occasions. The idea of using the tarp is still an approved alternate daily cover. I think what was learned in those couple instances where there were observations that it had blown off overnight is that the landfill had to do a better job of securing it, and then also making the call based on what the expected weather conditions were gonna be, to just not even utilize it for that evening if it's going to be expected high winds. So the landfill did come up with a plan, you know, under certain expected weather conditions, they're gonna use soil instead of the tarp. And then they've also developed some additional means of holding the tarp in place better.
And the only thing I forgot to mention with the visual component is, that northern side is especially sensitive because of its location to the national, National Heritage Corridor, which is also in that location, a co-trail to the 9/11 Memorial Trail. So it's a very important asset to the whole Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
And that specific section of the trail is utilized for various high visibility events that happen throughout the year. And so I would just emphasize that what you're able to see from the DNL trail.
Let me address that real quick, because I think that was part of the, you know, some of the main concerns are that in some way, the application that was evaluated by the department is not representative of the current operations, and that's not accurate. The northern realignment that was approved, and the Form D had identified the trail as being where it's located and evaluated the potential impact that the northern realignment might have on the trail. Did line of sight studies, the department's evaluation with that information, they concurred that there was not going to be any significant impact from a visual perspective on that trail. And we've had staff confirm that as recently as today. You know, back in January, we hadn't had an opportunity to get out there, so I had asked the landfill's consultant to walk the trail. He was unable to see any portions of the active landfill from the trail. We had Robert, our inspector, go out about a month ago, maybe, in January, and walked the trail. We were on it today, and we could not identify any place on the trail where the landfill was visible.
That's fantastic news. I'm grateful that you.
And realizing that, you know, in January, you're looking at the worst case scenario. Now we're starting to get leaf cover. Now at times you can hear some background noise. You might be able to pick up a backup beeper or whatever. Again, you know, that type of noise levels are not considered a nuisance. And then those types of issues only get better with the leaf cover. It's gonna drown out anything like that. And if you can't see it with no leaves on the trees, obviously, as the seasons progress, you're not gonna see it. You know, you're not seeing it now, so you're not gonna see it with the leaves on the trees. But we did confirm that.
Thank you. I don't really ask any more questions. I feel like the residents and the other members of this committee might have questions, so I'm gonna stop my questions for now.
I'm here to listen, and I want to, again, my thing was I'm proud that we're the only municipality that's on this list too.
You gotta remember there's a public out here wants to listen to you. 1, 2, 3,
Okay, I said, I'm here to listen to everybody too, but I also, because I've been doing this for a long time, and this is repetitive, and you guys, you know, same thing and same as and whatever. But, so I'm proud to be one of the host communities that is involved with their landfill, because it's important to hear from the residents, and I urge you to please call every time you smell the landfill. To me, it's a smell. If you open up your back door or front door to go outside and the odor hits you in the face, that is not your quality of life. That is not how it's supposed to be, and it happens. And unfortunately, if one person calls because their other 5 neighbors did not go outside at that moment, they're not smelling it. So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, to me, odor is very important and whatever. I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes, so I really appreciate you coming, and, that's pretty much all I have to say.
I got a question related to the smell. There's the mitigation, the consent order. Do you think that will minimize the smell going forward? Or when I looked at the smell reports historically, there's been more complaints, it seems, after heavy rains and in the evenings in the summer. We're getting to that season where the rains are gonna pick up and the humidity and wind shift in the evening and smacks you in the face as soon as you come home. Is that gonna be going away, or am I looking forward to another stinky summer?
Yeah, listen, we did the best we could to put the projects on paper that we felt were gonna be most impactful to minimize odors. We think we accomplished that. Are there guarantees to that? Absolutely not. But we feel like the project that was just recently completed on March 31st, and the upcoming project that's supposed to be completed, in June. Capping and gas collection. There are not 2 better mitigation measures for gas odors than capping and gas collection. And that's the key component, is to try to stay ahead of odor nuisances by having an aggressive capping and gas collection schedule. And we think we've got that accomplished with this agreement.
Fingers crossed.
Can I just say something before they come? Okay, I'm speaking into the speaker. Okay, so I think it's very confusing when people call, and we've gone through this, the number, and it says, hang up, if this is not an emergency, I forget what the wording is, and that scares people off, and then they hang up, and they don't realize that they have to wait, and an odor complaint is, I don't want to say an emergency, because it's not a gas explosion, it's not whatever, but in order to get a DEP person aware that there's an odor going on, you have to wait till the answering machine picks up. Leave your message in that, and you have to do that. So don't think, oh, we gotta have to hang up because it's an emergency, call back tomorrow. No, I would say the DEP nose has to smell it, and in order to get that nose out there, you have to call at that moment and tell them how long it's been going on.
Yes, we've heard that concern from other municipalities that have landfills. The secretary is evaluating that exact issue. It was been requested to change it. We can't change it because of that, the intent of that service after hours. We have to maintain that emergency line. Secretary Shirley's evaluating some alternative to that answering. There might be a different answering service for non-emergency after hours events. They're still evaluating that. But just so the public hears this, if you call after hours and you get that voicemail or that message, don't hang up. The department does consider your registration of an after hours odor complaint. I wouldn't say we call it an emergency, but we consider that information that we want to know real time. So if it's happening real time, we want to know about it real time. The difficulty lies in that if we find out about it the next day, or a lot of the public likes to use the electronic submittal now, where you can file a complaint electronically by typing your information in. We don't see that real time. We see that the next day, or if it's submitted on a Saturday, we don't see it till Monday. So don't ever use the electronic submittal to report odors. We won't find out about it until hours or days after it's submitted.
Call your neighbors when you smell it, make them go outside and smell it. I don't know, but, and anyway, so with that, I'm leaving, so thank you, everybody.
Okay, so, that brings us to the, end of our portion of the meeting. Item 10 is public comment. So if there's any members of the public who wish to come up to the podium and comment, we just ask that, out of respect for everyone's time, you keep your comment limited to around 5 minutes or so.
Hi, I'm Stephen Barnaby. You make sure the mic is on. Hello? I have sent a lot of emails and pictures, and just, this is when I first moved in my neighborhood, in Bethlehem Township. We bought the property in 2023 and, built it in 2024. And I think about March of 2024, so the permit started in 2024. I started seeing, activity, so I started taking pictures and noticing things, but I guess my big concern is, when you have two municipalities so close together, that, I know a letter was sent out in January of 2021, but everybody was just trying to survive COVID times, because I think the permit was talked about in 2020. So everybody was just surviving, wiping the groceries down, and, nobody was thinking about a landfill expansion. So I knew nothing about it, of course. I don't think anybody in Bethlehem Township knew about it. And then we moved into this neighborhood, and this occurred. And I just feel like there should be like more communication between communities, like municipalities. One letter in 2021, I don't think is enough to alert the public. I think it went to the commissioners, and I don't know if anybody went to the meeting. It was a Zoom call back in 2021. But, it's disturbing. Yes, it's the view shed. It's the smells. I don't get a lot of garbage smell. I get the methane. I get the gas smells. It has been better. I think, I do reach out to Astor as well as Amy, a lot of the time. But, and I do see improvements, but it was really bad in the winter. And, I know you guys are saying the wind, but it's also on the top of a mountain. So I always think to myself, why would DEP and any engineer think that this would be a good idea to go even higher on top of the mountain? The mountain's already high, and now we're going 720 feet above sea level. So it just seems like a ridiculous, hill. And now, we're moving the entire east of it now, which I think we're into, is it 2A, 2B? Which is, I think, still also huge, but it also seems like you're getting up to, I think, the limit of 640. It seems like it's kind of going across. It seems like it's going very fast. And yes, it's gonna be over in 2028, now that the easements have been restored officially, east of this, that makes a lot of people feel better. But this northern realignment, even when it is gone, it's always gonna be this giant, ugly, giant mass. So, I also think, when you put the temporary cover, it's gonna be this bright green, mound, and will sod even grow on such an incline, in the future? These are things that I think about for my future, because I have to look at this literally every single day when I walk my dog, when I go outside to enjoy. Now it's at least getting green, but, it's just the mountains here and the landfills here. And it's very disturbing. And Bethlehem Township is suffering, I think, a lot more than Lower Stockton right now. And maybe that's why it's passed, because it's on the north side, and a lot of people were like, oh, we don't care, it's just kind of over there now. Sorry, I don't any disrespect on that, but, or nobody really thought about that it was gonna go straight up in the air. Like, it just seems, again, I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't seem like, going that high. And yes, the weather's getting tumultuous. We have winds, crazy winds, and they're not gonna stop, And yeah, you could just keep putting dirt, and your tarps obviously don't work that well, and it does look better with the dirt. And the smells are maybe a little better since you did some of the capping, but I just want you guys to know that it affects me especially. I don't know why, I guess, you know, I've lived in downtown Bethlehem, I knew it was there. I'm not like completely clueless, you know, I've been in this area my entire life. And everybody's always said, it's gonna close in 5 years, it's gonna close in 5 years. And, you know, there's all the, oh, that little water tower is never gonna go higher than the water tower, and now it's here. So, you know, there's all these things people have said over the years. And the whole neighborhood, I have a neighbor here with me today. You know, it's probably gonna affect our property values in the future. A lot of people come from New Jersey, maybe they don't realize it's there. Again, I knew it was there, I just didn't know about this expansion. And I really think that I should have known about it. And, you know, to kick myself, there's nothing I could have done. You know, it's done. But it affects my mental health. I mean, I have to say, like, I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed by it a lot. I think about the smells, I think about the toxins, you know. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's a place that DEP should have said, that's a good idea, I think I'm gonna, you know, approve that expansion. I feel like they should have looked at this and thought this plant was like just out of control, and this landfill's been here since the 40s, and maybe it should just close, you know, it's done its duty, and that's it. And I'm not sure what else can happen now, because in 2028, when this application is done, you know, hopefully you guys can get the capping on and kind of just move on and just start decaying. But, you know, it's always gonna be there. You know, it is an issue, and it's not a blessing. So I just feel like maybe in the future, maybe there could be better rules between townships, because it's literally on the border. You know, the river's there, and I'm 1 mile from it. You know, the fact that when people say the noise is not a problem, it's a problem. I hear it all day long, backing up, banging. When I sit on my deck, it's you know, I get used to it, I can kind of tune it out, but it's beeping and banging, and it's not a blessing. So it does affect a lot of people on this side. So I just hope that when you think about expansions in the future, that, you know, you consider everything around it. Because you can see it from 78, you can see it from all over Bethlehem, and it's not something that you'd be proud of. You know, like when I lived in downtown Bethlehem, we had this historic Bethlehem, and it was like this beautiful thing. And now it's like, I moved from there to here, and I got this. And it's just unpleasant. So that's all. That's all I have.
A lot of us were really heartbroken to see the deforestation on the mountain. You know, if you're looking from Bethlehem Township, the trees are gone from the top of the mountain. It's especially heartbreaking
Sorry, ma'am.
because,
Would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Lynn Hill, Lower Salkin resident.
Real quick though, I mean, we've had some correspondence, I think, with you.
Yes,
And I think the department has confirmed that there's been no deforestation of that area.
you should really look at the before-after pictures, because there used to be trees, and now there are no trees. And I have to tell you, and maybe you've seen my letter to Joe Buzinski about this, the communities around here, residents in Lower Saucon, St. Luke's University, Bethlehem Township, the D&L National Heritage Corridor, am I missing anyone? We've all spent, you know, probably a couple $100,000 for litigation to try to save the 208 acres of conservation easements that the landfill had purchased a couple of years ago. And after spending all that money and winning the case, we see that there's no trees at the top of those mountains.
So I just want to clarify, we haven't taken any trees down, and Amy's seen it where there was a straight line winds, the tornadoes, like they fall, a lot of the trees are just dead, which happens all around the area. I mean, there's people that are actually logging in the area from Still City to where 78 Rye Drive, we have taken no trees down, 0 trees have we taken down.
There was a letter that Mary Ann Garber wrote to Gary Estek approximately 2 years ago, declaring that they were going to remove no more than 50 trees
Oh, that was just for water sampling, that was.
I don't want to be gaslit here.
Not being gaslit.
There used to be a forested mountain, and now the top of that mountain is not
Taking our trees out
forested.
of the top.
You go look at it. I mean, don't call me a liar.
I'm not, I've been
The
there
other
7
thing
years.
I must point out, you know, this is what happens when you have a landfill in your community. People talk about odors and they say, oh, are you sure you're not smelling the farm or the water treatment plant? No, you know, we're intelligent people, and when we see something, we're going to say something, and we don't want to be gaslit about it. On the application for the Northern Realignment expansion that was submitted to DEP, it clearly stated that the operations would remain on the south side of the mountain. Now that's there in plain English for anybody to read in black and white. So I don't want to be told that it's not accurate to say that things don't look like what was stated in the application. I realized there were drawings and things, and if you look at them, you can see the topography that, you know, you could know that it was going to come across there, but it's kind of been an axiom in this community, in the surrounding area, that the landfill was going to stay on the south side of the mountain, that it would never come over. I mean, that's what elected officials told us. That's, you know, that has been the general knowledge, is that this thing is gonna stay on the lower Salkin side of the mountain. So I just, you know, it's just very disappointing that, you know, especially after many of us have spent lots of money trying to save the conservation easements, which we really should not have had to do, but that's because we had people on council who had errors in judgment or whatever. The other thing I want to say is the large working face, it would seem to me, is going to attract more vultures. So I would appreciate, you know, keeping the working face area limited. And lastly, for DEP, you know, we have 39 active landfills in our state. We're a net importer of garbage. And I would like to see better technology, you know, move away from landfills into more modern technology. The trash to energy plants that are coming out now are a lot better environmentally. There's a lot more pollution controls on them, and that it would seem to me a better alternative than to just burying the trash and then having it just very slowly pollute the area over many, many, you know, years. Wouldn't it be better to just, you know, burn it up? You're gonna have pollution either way, you know, until we find a better way to have products that are not, that don't last so long, you know. But I really wish DEP would consider more modern methods for disposing of trash. And lastly, we're happy that there is less trash coming from New York and New Jersey, but now what we're seeing are trucks coming through our back roads from more local areas, you know, from like Bucks County and you know, south of here. I even see them on my road, these giant garbage tractor trailers on a country road where I live, about 3 miles from the landfill. You see them coming through Hellertown as well. So while we've solved one problem, we've created another. You know, we don't really want to have these giant trash trucks coming through the small town of Hellertown and the back roads of our beautiful community that we want to keep rural. So I thank you for coming, all of you, and I appreciate the hard work that you've done. And thank you for addressing the items that were in the consent order. I know it's hard work, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello, Bruce Petrie, Reddington Road. I'm on the other side of Bull Run. I lived there over 35 years. So when we moved there, couldn't see the mountain. Now, as Tina said, it's a monstrosity. Can you tell me how high it is now? In terms of feet, meters, whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll let Astro plan on that, but the one thing I'll say is that the northern realignment did not raise any of the previously approved highest elevations. It just extended those same exact elevations eastward. But I don't better the exact.
I mean, our permitted height is 725 feet.
And what is it now?
The highest points are about 720, 725. Like the main road where we have the stockpiles is all 720, you know, I mean, we stopped building them at 725. Some of them have settled, I was telling Roger earlier, they're settled to about 720.
So it can't go any higher?
That's our permitted height is 725.
All right, so again, just to reiterate what Tina said, you know, in Victoria, there we go. Oh, this is from my property?
This is me.
Okay.
This is 725. That's the cell one, cell two, and then three will be this way, but,
Got it.
the rest are supposed to be 640, so it'll be lower, which it looks like it's supposed to it.
Yeah, okay,
But this is definitely not what it was before,
yeah.
right? And you said permitted area. And
So-
then it went up in the air.
Those, but it has, the northern realignment has never gone higher than
Right.
720.
I don't think it's ever gone anywhere. This is what it looked like before. It was flat.
Yeah.
It was flat. It's completely flat. when I-
Right, but what
So this
you're,
long is here.
right, it moves forward. That elevation is the same elevation as what's behind it, it just looks higher because it's closer to your property.
Okay, so it's here.
Right,
So-
right. It's
Tina,
the
just
perspective.
respectfully, because he's on his comment period, so we just want to do one person at a time, explanation.
So anyway, like I said, I mean, 35 years ago, and I'm sure the trees have gotten bigger, and it's not like we've lost a lot of trees on that hillside, the landfill side of Bull Run. And again, we're concerned with, you know, any runoff, whatever, going into Bull Run, behind the river, but it's just an eyesore, it just really is. And, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to convert it to something that's a little bit less taxing. The other question I had to the DEP, maybe I got it wrong, but when you were somebody was talking about warnings, right? Somebody was talking about warnings. So with their constant violations over the last 10 years, why are you giving them any warnings? Why aren't you just giving them fines? It's like somebody that keeps speeding. Like, stop giving them warnings, just give them a fine.
Right, so, I mean, again, they're not consistently the same issues, right? So we developed a CONA, like consent or agreement, to address certain issues. One of which was the odors, which I think, you know, we think we've got the plan in place now to help ensure that the gas odor issue is not going to be an issue moving forward. When it comes to things like the flagging or seeing some materials through the surface, those are the types of issues that we've seen the efforts that were made up to these dates. But again, I think we were in a situation, February, March, and into early April, where the conditions were taxing and that they knew what they needed to do. The department was giving them some leniency on getting it done, because they weren't capable of getting the equipment on there. It doesn't make it right. It's still, it was non-compliant with the standard, but the department considers some of the reasons why. Again, though, you know, when those things are identified on an inspection report, it's intended to be factual. We certainly don't want to not put anything on there, right? I mean, we were considering, yeah, this is something that needs to be addressed, but we're not gonna cite them, so we won't say anything. We're making sure everybody's aware of what the department's seeing, but it's up to me to defend why we haven't fined them for that. And all I can say is that we take a lot of things into consideration, the efforts that are being made at the landfill, the impact of the community, and then we decide whether or not it needs to be raised to the next time.
I mean, there's a period of multiple years. It's not something like this is only 2 years old, it's been going on for 10 years. And do you use drone technology?
We do not.
gotta use some of the fine that, thank you.
If we went back 6 months, because we're only looking at 3 months of reports, there's the whole status of action items. It says to be completed, to be completed, to be completed. Would it be the same 3 to 6 months previously, or am I gonna be continuously seeing to be completed another 3 to 6 months? And we're only looking at the snapshot during these meetings.
But it depends on the item, like with the utility flare, I mean, that's a process of going through, working with air quality. So, I mean, it's sometimes the reason why it's not completed, like you said, either with weather, or we're going through, you know, we have to put bids out.
Yeah, you're an active site.
Yeah,
Right.
and the only thing I would add to that is if any of these items at all were included in the CONA, to be completed, there's a deadline. And if it's not done by a certain date, there are stipulated penalties built into the agreement that, if those deadlines aren't met, they pay a fine every day for it not being met.
Somebody else also mentioned the truck traffic. I've noticed with the increase of traffic due to construction and the warehouses on 78, more and more garbage trucks are taking the back roads. What are the approved companies that can be on Lower Sauk and Apple Buddy Road? And what can we do to help reduce that?
I mean, the ability to be able to help is really is like letting me know. Because then we'll track those trucks and we'll suspend those trucks.
I talked with Kathy Fishel McGovern, she provided photos and all that, and
So, and I've talked to her and some of those, and I've brought Amy in on the conversation, so we have a route, but also they're local haulers, like Simon's,
Yeah.
JNS, they have containers over there, Del Garrico, I drove a bunch of those back roads, they have containers back, they're allowed to.
they're
come
allowed
back
there, yeah.
And then the other part of it is, there are customers, like one specifically is Shrimp, they have their own landfill.
Yeah.
That's the road they take to their landfill, I have no control over
Yeah.
their.
And Swin is right there as well.
Yeah, I have no control over how
more
we get Shrimp, right?
concerned about the larger ones.
Right, yeah, no, if you see a semi up there, definitely let me know, because they're not supposed to go there, they know that.
And with the increase in truck traffic, especially with the construction on 78 right now, it's picked up.
Yeah, I mean, those issues have been brought to Amy's attention, and she has worked with Astor. A lot of the vehicles that were identified in the photos it was discerned that they were either not going to the landfill, or they were local and could be on that road. But I think like Astor's saying, I don't think there should be any reason to see any tractor trailer that might be utilizing the landfill to be on any road other than Apple Butter and coming off the highway.
Yeah, 412, Srvcs Road after Butter. If you see anybody outside of that, then let me know right away.
I guess just to follow up, made me think about one of the questions, and looking at the solid waste report about the percentages. Is the majority of trash coming from places south of us right now, like Bucks County, Montgomery County, or any places south of us?
Without looking at a report, it's hard to say where majority of it's coming from, it's off the top of my head, but I mean, we service the whole Lehigh Valley, so. And then we have stuff that comes from, you know, I think the only place we don't accept trash from would be, I think Carbon, right, we're not allowed to Carbon. Monroe.
Monroe County, yeah, they have their own plan.
But they have a flow control thing, I think we want, but, yeah, I mean, if somebody calls us and we admit it, they can come from the north, or the south, or from the east, and come from the west.
I'm just pointing out because I think like when the whole northern realignment and I'm not sure when the approved route was in place, like whether it was northern realignment prior to that. But at that time, the amount of out-of-state garbage was coming from like New Jersey and New York, where 78 was the closest interstate road to get to the landfill. So it kind of made sense, but if the landfill is shifting the location of where the garbage is coming from to be from places south and west versus north and east, there may be different routes, and I guess that's the question. If it's coming from south and west, are they still required to get on 78 to get off Apple Butter, or to get on to Shimersville to Apple Butter? And can we try to identify, you know, maybe just some information or some education into those newer locations? I don't know if they're new, but locations that are now providing more garbage to the landfill from previously about the actual, you know, hauling route.
For any site that I deal with, As soon as, that's one of the first conversations we have with the customer, is what route they have to take. We have literature that we've made, booklets, I used to have some out in the lobby here, that share what our safety rules are, what those routes are.
So like
Again, a lot
somebody
of
from the
it's-
south would have to get onto 78 to then get off at 412 to
Yeah.
take Sherman.
And
So
they're
I
not allowed to
think
go to
that's the.
Freemansburg, they're not allowed to come through Lordstown Road, and, you know, they have to come in Shermanville, that is the designated route.
And like Astor said, I think the best thing that you can do, from a public perspective, is if you see trucks that you feel are probably not supposed to be there going to the landfill, let the landfill know.
Yeah, I mean, I get residents that send me pictures and we immediately look into it. If it is one of our trucks, yeah, we reach out to them, suspend them right away, and if it's a persistent problem, we kick them out.
You want to introduce yourself?
Am I allowed to? Are you ready?
Please do.
I usually leave a pretty good impact. My name is Mark Osnick. I live on Reddington Road across the street from Bruce and Ginger Petrie, who have the horse farm. So I am directly across from where the expansion and the World War I demolition loaded bombs up site is. So I got several things here marked as questions, but the first thing I'm going to comment on is the trucks. And I understand, and I don't know what it is, I don't have them from me, but I understand the garbage dump does have routes that they want the trucks to take, wherever they come from, and that's fine. But what the majority of people don't understand is because they're not a truck driver or a truck company owner, and they don't pay state taxes or federal taxes, they are allowed to be on those roads, whether you like it or not. Something you've got to accept. Period. That should solve the trucking problem. Hey, you know what? There's no trucks, but they come through 53-foot trailers on the Narrows, past the hill climb. I'm waiting for them to end up on the railroad. But when there's an accident on 78, shit hits the fan in the township. Period. I heard your name, but I never got to talk to you. So here's question number one. The DEP fine of $117,000, whatever it was, plus change, where does that money go?
So that gets deposited in the solid waste abatement fund, which is utilized for, expenses for the operation of the waste program.
Deposit to what fund?
The solid waste abatement fund. And our program is budgeted out of that fund. So that fund not only pays for the operation of the waste program, it also pays for projects that are deemed abandoned or orphaned that needed to be cleaned up.
Okay. Was there ever any, or would there ever be any consideration on compensating the local neighbors that have to tolerate the landfill when things happen? Like when the smells come, or the garbage gets blown around, or gas smells, or something of that nature. Would there ever be anything that would benefit the residents in the local area that live next to?
The regulations are pretty specific regarding penalties taken by the waste program. All penalties are to be deposited in the solid waste abatement fund.
Okay. Question number two, in reference to my papers over there. It was on the last page about cleaning up trash and stuff around the landfill, I guess, or when it blows over. Does the landfill ever send people out to Shimersville Road? Because I noticed Shimersville Road's really garbaged up a lot lately, I mean a lot. And I know it's not on Apple Butter Road, and I don't know if it's people, you know, driving down the street, I don't want my soda no more, I don't want this no more, because I got it in front of my house from people. I got a motorcycle tire sitting out there now. But do you guys ever take care of Shinersville Road?
We have, we're not responsible for it, but we have sent crews out there that we get paid for crews to pick it.
Kudos to you. Is Shinersville Road a Bethlehem road or a Lower Saucon road, or is it a state road?
It's a lower Saucon road.
So does the Lower Saucon,
No, wait, Shinersville
The city of Bethlehem.
I'm thinking about
Shiner-
Ringhofer. I don't know why Shinersville, Ringhofer, they don't sound
Pretty
the
sure
same.
Shinersville or city.
Shinersville is city of Bethlehem. Sorry.
so then we should have Bethlehem in there cleaning up some of their trash from the road. Excellent. You said there was how many complaints before action is taken on the issues, and you have no general rule. Example of issues, blah, 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 blah. Let me look for my cues. Here's an idea. Do you ever inspect the Shrin landfill?
Yes, at the same frequency as we do that.
Do you, well, I can imagine you inspect other landfills as well.
Correct.
Are there anything that the other landfills do that would benefit the Bethlehem landfill if they took on that idea?
Well, recently, we've incorporated them in, specifically under the COA and specifically under the Northern Realignment Approval. We've developed some above and beyond regulatory standard requirements that the landfills do, surface monitoring for methane, federal regulations, which was the governing regulation up until, we developed some permit conditions to enhance those, was that landfills would only need to conduct surface monitoring quarterly, and then they would only need to monitor areas where waste had been placed for more than 5 years. Over the years, the waste program has learned that methane begins generating a lot faster than 5 years. And when the landfill's in a condition where it may have extended periods of time of intermediate cover, meaning a soil cap versus, because they're gonna place waste there in the future, instead of a synthetic cap, that we require them to do those areas monthly. So what's that happening with the landfill, and we've done this at multiple other landfills, Shrin being one, Keystone, almost across the board, Grand Central. We have these requirements built into their permits now, where they have any areas of intermediate cover, where they have these soil caps, they're conducting monthly monitoring on those. So they're catching any potential surface emissions more quickly and can take mitigation measures, whether that's adjusting wells in that area to do a better job capturing gas, adding additional cover. So to answer your question, I can't think of anything that any of the other landfills are doing, but we more recently have beefed up our requirements for surface monitoring measures that the landfill has to take if they discover any of those surface emissions.
Okay. I don't know if you can answer this for me, but when I would call and I would talk to Consetta, she would say, what does it smell like? I don't know, it smells like garbage. Does it smell like gas? So is there a definitive way to tell if it's gas or garbage? Because to me, it's all one and the same. I mean, I can tell the difference between the sewage plant. I mean, that's obvious. Right. But as far as gas and garbage, is there a definitive way to tell the difference?
So our staff, obviously, they're visiting landfills all the time, that's their job. They typically have no problem distinguishing between an off-site garbage odor versus an off-site gas odor versus an off-site leachate odor versus an off-site leachate seep odor. They're all very distinctive, but the public obviously doesn't have that knowledge. What I would say is, if you detect an odor that you believe to be the landfill at night, correlate that to a gas odor, because the garbage odors are pretty well contained by the end of the day. You're only gonna really get garbage odors during their operating hours when they're actively dumping garbage, processing it, compacting it. So, you know, you'd have to observe that. But the one thing I can say is if you're getting odors at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or on a Sunday, you can probably, and you know it's the landfill, you can correlate that to a landfill gas odor.
Also, I just wanna add, when you call the number, and instead of ask that question of everybody, you don't have to answer if you don't know. Any description that you have is fine, because when people say, oh, it smells more like gas, if she asks the question, that kind of steers our investigation. But even if you don't know, it's okay, like, we'll still go and, you know, ask questions of the landfill, we still let them know every time, we still will, you know, do odor controls and go on site if we're getting off-site odors. So even if we know residents aren't sometimes gonna know the difference between a garbage and gas odor, and that's fine, just keep calling in, and whatever description you have is fine.
Yeah, we've had that conversation. We've had it many times. Now she don't answer no more. She answers, too busy. Basically, those are my questions. I probably could come up with more, but you guys have better answers to do. I would like to say that when I came out of my house this morning, because I did not call, the landfill did smell this morning, and I heard the beep, 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 whatever. You just had a whole bunch of work going over there this morning when I came out to take Vicky out for her car to go to work, and I smelled it. It wasn't definitely bad, it wasn't overwhelming, but I could smell it, just so you know. And I guess that's it. Priscilla left. Priscilla says we can't sue the landfill on our own for the residents to get some kind of benefit out of it when we have issues. You know, not that I want any of your money. But, try and keep up. When I was a kid, I put a liner in that dump when I was a teenager, and I'll be 67 in September. So I've been here forever. I used to take my dad's Ford in there to dump the household construction crap. I guess just try and do the best you can do. You can't ask for much more, but, you know, try not to be neglectful.
I think we have one other public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or two.
Bruce just admonished me to keep it to 3 minutes. My name is Robert Blasco. I live on Reddington Road, right down from Bruce and Jimmy. I have a question or two. What is the expected benefit of the Falconer?
The Falconer?
Right.
Right, so I mean, you know, Pastor may be better able to answer that question, but the Falconer's intention of being there is to disperse the birds, to keep the birds from congregating at the landfill.
Okay, where do they go when they're not dispersed, or when they are dispersed? Do you have any idea?
Well, no, but the idea is that if they're constantly harassed, that they will eventually avoid the area.
They avoid the landfill and they turn around and go to local church playgrounds. That's where we see them.
Are you talking specifically about the horticultures?
Mennonite Church in Steel City is one of their, should I say, infamous hangouts. So they disperse them, but they don't kill them, they don't unalive them, however you want to put it, they still exist.
You're talking about the vultures?
DEP is there during work hours, I'm assuming. The Falconer is there not all the time. So they're being dispersed while the Falconer is there. They're going to other places, yet they come back to feed at the landfill and to congregate at the landfill when they're not being purposely dispersed. That's one thing. Another thing, in January, violations were noticed in March, or the landfill was given till March, the local population had to endure the effects of those violations for 3 months at least. Another thing that gets me is that there is no DEP requirement for the working phase. There's no DEP requirement for how far the tipping area is from the working phase, correct?
Correct.
So that is one loophole that could definitely be taken advantage of. You could be tipping anywhere from 100 feet to 1,000 yards theoretically, and pushing it all that way, and the local population has to put up with it. Going along with what Bruce said when he was up here as far as ticketing violations, a landfill already knows the regulations that they're violating. It's not like you're surprising them with new violations or unknown regulations every month. So I have to agree, and I've often thought this, that when they violate a regulation, they should be fined immediately. Period. It was answered as far as the height of the latest expansion has not gone up any higher, because that's all the higher that they are permitted to go. My question would be, what determines the height?
You mean the measurement?
What determines how high a landfill can go? I was under the impression, or I had been told, that it has to do with the gradient of the slope. Is that true?
That plays a role. You know, the landfills can take different construction, ways of constructing their landfill to get a higher peak with a smaller base.
Such as
an MSE wall.
Right, okay.
Right.
That's what I thought you might be referring to.
Right.
What is this wall? What's it made of? What's it constructed of?
Well, an MSE wall is a combination of earthen material, mesh, different geosynthetic components that ensure that its integrity, you know, once it's constructed, can maintain the load that it's intended to maintain. That the northern realignment had an associated MSE wall with it. That wall has not been constructed yet. It's hard to see, but if you visualize the west side of the landfill from the north, there's already an MSE wall on that side, and that would be similar to what was proposed and approved for the northern realignment.
Approximately what percentage of that MSE wall is earthen? Is it like when they put in an earthen dam? What percentage of it is dirt, basically?
I'm not sure that I can answer that question.
Yeah,
but
it's probably more than 90%.
Yeah,
It's
the-
earth, little layers of geosynthetics.
Yeah, I mean, there's proven technology that was engineered and reviewed by an engineer to ensure that the wall would be constructed properly.
So it seems to me that every time someone asks, can it go any higher? The answer is always given back from my attending different meetings, that it can't go any higher because that's all the higher it's permitted to go. I think what they're saying is that's all the higher it's permitted to go right now. I think that the population would think that that means that's all the higher they're ever going to go, and that's not the answer that we've been given. I don't understand, for one thing, how it is that they can continue to dump garbage, but that same garbage cannot always be covered. How can you dump with heavy equipment and then turn around and say, we can't get our heavy equipment in here to cover it? Seems like a farce to me. You can't remedy the situation because of weather. How can you dump in that same weather? The odors are definitely not limited to working times. You can smell them all weekend at times, many times late into the evening and throughout the night. Those are my comments and questions, thank you.
Can I address a question on the height? Does that have anything to do with sea level?
Yeah, that's how it's measured.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to comment?
Is that MSE wall ever gonna get built on the northern rear line? And will it help visually if it was?
And there's an embassy wall further to the west.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would look similar to that.
But it's so much more open, northern face, would it make it look better?
Yeah, I mean, again, the area to the west of the walls was look like, so that, for me to tell you something look better, that's your opinion.
It's lower than the next year. So we don't know.
Okay. If there's no more public comment, I think we've reached the end of our meeting, and we can adjourn. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody. It's been another lovely day. Now I can go home and drink beer.
Listen, man, everybody's got to get the information out there, and it's understandable. Somebody that just doesn't have access to all the same information. People that are dealing with it. Sometimes you don't hear it from somebody else.
It is. We do it once a year. Yeah, it's like you forget. So I wish yeah, it's like a year. Exactly.